Welcome again to my island. Pull up a deck chair, help yourself to the tanning. But as for the brain crabs, they're gone. The brain, the crabs, and the guards, and the porpoise, the elephant, elegant dolphin, all gone, edited away with all the memories, deities, and ghosts of the old dead age. Now the issue is one of survival. We've reached the conclusion of time, the rational. This is the end of history, the swagger of science, the uber victories, space, and near time. This is the end of the age of the deity. We are warned of judgment. The ancient tales of the withdrawal of the city of the deity are true. It's come now. This is the noble misfortune, the weeping, gnashing of teeth. The deity has drawn the dead, merging from leaving us to our own vices. Flesh-coated clocks and artificial deities on the march, horrifying effects, scary times. Perhaps there is a possibility that Buckstop's plan for world dominance is already realized. He's already taken over the grid and disseminated psychotropic compounds to global water supply. But surely that's not right. We saw the destruction of the clock in the dream, carrying ballistic missile fragmented, and the world has gone mad. Now in these broken derelict days, after the end of time, is possible to come two opposites into Are you with William Burroughs' trilogy? The idea is simple: create something new by combining something old and commonplace. This technique generates an original creative product. Distressing tale from the Twilight Report about Paraguay and physics claims we shall journey through the cosmos, but through fourth and two. His claims are true. For today we are back a time journey to 1979, bringing with us an explanation what we saw and how it first warned. This operation requires accuracy as a difficult enterprise. It is based in part on a 20th century experiment conducted by my grandfather Jewel Poe. These experiments were aimed at creating a new process of color photography. Brightly colored ones were tied to a loose winter tree in the Poe family's back in Waco, Texas. Double reversal film stock was exposed through a lens or prism. Somehow wires were crossed and time-space polarity was reversed. The developed film reveals a horizon beyond the horizon. I'm caught a psychic and train trapped out a snap the last weekend of 1979 and back it to 93 and forward to outer space. Spun into an optical bit around the Circadian scientific outpost on Uranus, where they know of my grandfather's experiment. I focus on the heavy silent waves through me. Beware, the no effect, aka Joule effect, will part excitement, danger, just as you expect in traveling beyond the border, back beyond. Only the adventurous should apply. However, fourthdoms belong to everyone. Is the courage to come in. It belongs to you. So here, the entire four-part process, precisely as it. Part 1, begin voyage, corpse house of the newspaper. The fold today. You fold today in with yesterday and type up salting. When you read through your daily newspaper, you typically see and absorb more than you. In fact, everything. It is not easily accessible to you because the level of unconscious understanding. The folding process establishes a metaphor relationship between today and yesterday. Have a stem script, combine photo montage, forms a montage of time. Give yourself literal about within the frame of that montage occupying yesterday. You return to present time by traveling towards. You will do this many hours per day for several months. Back far, exhume old magazine forgotten to poke about the cadaver, brittle yellow letters and dusty report. Make fold-ins and writes even with the photograph. Part 2. Proceed to the close studio film. Here you will to have a talk with yourself in. This is done by running and soundtracking. This is precisely thematic diagram employed in the creation of a bib. Picture Christ eating the Last Supper with his disciples. After this reversion, turning satiety back to hunger. At first, the film will break into a run at full speed. Next, it drops into slow motion. Same procedure can be extended into other physical processes, including expelling of ectoplasm. Offended? No. You must move into your sexual prude or reticence. Sex will be possibly the heaviest in the present time. Part 3. Edit the resulting film into an endless loop on a single metal root. This process results in a great circular movie without beginning or end, birth or death. For full effect, should be viewed in a circular theater and projected onto a circular. If you cut through the middle of the reel and view the individual frames, then you find that it is actually the deity, a sentient being realized in the form of a living V from the back of beyond, whose precise center is any point in your life and therefore totally remote and unreachable. Part 4. Open the door on space-time continuum and a slow wave shivers through. The Joule effect is a wonderful tool in the right hands, but when it is in the wrong hands. Buckstop was clearly the wrong hands, and now the world has gone mad. We must pray for this mad world. Here's a prayer taught me by Bella Rothschild. O Holy One of subways, all house flesh, crawling through old strangers' rest, a territory of bankrupt cattle drivers, but that stretches past the lamps, insects, and the nocturnal clear, throwing off carnivorous aquatic insects swimming down to the underworld, down to crumble failure, somewhere near the feral cat that stalks shadows, where funeral urn metal shipping contains. Cry out the name of the holy being, the one who swims as will still you, the same holy one, and I couldn't write any better than the kings of the containers. Glowing glass transistors inside a ruined wall marked and filled by his celestial robot from a winged demon, transforming forbidden fruit, cables, flesh-coated wheels, and ominous rumblings that escape from the dark that was My reflection caught silently above the marshes, and the heart pulsing in the ghost wreckage of first giant tongue in the sky, wreckage that went, and they did not repent. And then the sun shone fuller and fuller, and the president of Uruguay spoke over a radio torn from the levee, going down into the giant tongue in the sky that filled his celestial robot from place. There's more to the prayer, but I can't remember it right now. These are dark times. Jewel effect fires off at random, resulting in countless accumulations, seizures, and dark afflictions among the populace. The flesh-coated Markov chain cut up that scattered across the globe during the destruction clock in the air, randomly scramble language into a new literary slew of constantly switching tenses and subject-object disagreements, resulting in a non-linear sublogical form of communication. But for some reason I am yet unaffected. The last sane man, it is explanation for the insanity I see around me. Perhaps I am the Messiah, called upon by the deity to lead people back from the edge of insanity and beyond. I am Jesus Christ too. But also a question, am I Charteris? Thanks to the Joule effect, we can find out. We shall simultaneously look back into 1969, i.e. Barefoot in the Head, by Brian LaRossa, and look forward to 3 years from now. Yes, it's coming into focus now. A world of tomorrow, a world of psychotropic weapons, a world of raging terror, a world of undeclared sacrament war, a world where every citizen is a madman. I cannot help identifying with Clark Carring, creator and stainer and second hybrid, the planet La. Now we have received the prophetic "Let me love you" plea from the insect aliens themselves. Their thoughts are now ours. We are like the citizens of Babel immediately after the anguished collapse of the Tower of Heaven, stumbling about in a cacophony of incomprehensible voices, attempting to make sense of the nonsensical. In the beginning, it was not easy to decode their transmission. The messages are beamed here from distant galaxies within, crackling through flesh-covered speakers, sort of mangled staccato cry. Over time, cellular translators in the viral DNA phone smoothed out the discarded static into a comfortable, almost melodic rhythm, a poetic form suggestive of the magneto whir of the disintegrated society of the West, or the dry, disconsolate rasp of buzzard wing. The alien communications are experienced inside a sentient picture, a prophetic, sacred film to bring about the death of time and the birth of a new religion. Here it is. Get a deep sense. Catapults him into the civilian, extreme terror and joy. When on the side of pure freedom, after the populace stumbling through and changed beyond recognition by mind-altering psychotropic weapon, yet the beast slink through the shrubbery. Effects of the drug are contagious, so multiple personality-inducing sacrament journey. An aid worker by autonomous nanobots, Adolfo Morel is famous driven by a miniature, but drops out before the crucifixion. Inside, every citizen is a madman waiting to be riddled with CODM. What are you two all about? You were on beam that day? It is the Messiah. My therapist says how them formed. They actually had the mothballs USS Ethan Allen Hitchcock, which was already employed in the Sacrament War with most of the Earth population, utilizing communicators that reproduce mind procedures of fourth hardness. I know. Perhaps I am as I'd like to believe. Perhaps my mind is handcuffed to some sort of Markov chain that was spun off when the area clock exploded. I bet if we check real or 9, we'll be able to see if it fly across the morning sky, leaving a white contrail where the grammar does match up, an icy thin cirrus cloud of switching tenses, mismatched subject, object, etc. Classic output, a flesh-coated Markov generator. The insane forces of darkness drank bourbon, the ruin of the old church of Fort Jessup. The late light of the sun of the deity streamed through the broken shards, stained glass, reminding the sun of a Sunday morning. From childhood, a moment that may not have actually occurred. It was hard to recall events from that long ago. The insane forces of darkness were old now. They passed their days drinking bourbon in church and taking little naps in the rotting pews. But back in the days years ago, it was nothing to cut off DNA delivery organ, grow the ones in its place. It was a simpler matter. To cause the venerated icon to actually topple from the highest spire of the seminary, smashing into a million pieces at the convention theologian, without lifting a finger. They did it with nothing more than his presence, but no more. The old church was the front wall was the basement flooded. The type in the pew Bibles too small and faded to read. Soon it would be all gone. How old is he now? What? Oh, 107 last May. Bullhawk 83. So what? What I want to know is when he is going to sleep. He's asleep right now. No, he's napping. He'll be up again in minutes. He won't get anywhere near the REM cycle. He already dreams anymore at all. He hardly dreams anymore at all. It was true. Anymore, he slept maybe 3 hours a night. and that was fitful drifting in and out of consciousness. What little dreaming he did was brief and therefore wholly unsatisfying to the insane force of darkness. They wanted to take action. The problem was agree on exactly what form of action should take. that action should take. Let's make a pact. No more children or puppy dogs. I agree. How about the 22-year-old administrative assistant with the big boob and the tight? Oh no, you don't. What's wrong with the little? For the love of God, I swear if you don't bring her out one more time, I will have Grandma in burial shroud crawling up his leg with a butcher knife in her teeth. It was sad, an old man kind of argument, not at all worthy of their great history, because back in the day the insane force of darkness were without equal. For instance, there was the time they had him plant a tree that found magic water, which allowed it to grow so tall it pierced a roof and solved him. Another time they had him run for Congress, then get hurt in line of duty. And while he was unconscious, his wife ran his place. He made a fool of himself, of course, so he saved the day. A bat chased him, and some desperate young people who applied for jobs at a summer camp. They knew nothing about wood lore, but pretended, each one. As a bill collector, he undertook to collect a ruined man's debts. They proved to be more his finance. He and widely separated members of his family inherited a house and had to live there together. His wife fell in love with a wax dummy who turned out to be him. His father taught him to gamble on a special machine. Later, he unconsciously lost his wife on it. At a dinner party, he was frightened by living Annette's who kissed and plotted her. He was a moving picture magnate who was shipwrecked on a desert island with nothing but 24 canned film. He drove over neighborhood rooftops on a bet. His hearing became so sensitive he could hear radio. A beautiful woman got him out of the insane asylum to use him in her money-making. The insane force of darkness made themselves with their incredible Where do we get it? They asked one another, celebrating at their... It's wonderful, like something Fitzgerald, right? But no, now all the insane force of darkness could agree on was the final creation. A funeral, his own ashes keep blowing in his eyes. Everything over by 6 and nothing but a small man to mark the spot. There are no flowers requested or off. The corpse stirs faintly during the evening, but otherwise the scene is one. The insane forces of darkness were in perfect agreement. That's the way the world would end for Mark Leach. After the nerve gas attack, Colin Charteris sought out a worker named Charteris the Stranger, his doppelganger. It's been a while, 3 years. I'm up to my neck. He's 83 years old. He's preserved by the autonomous nanobots. Sometimes I think they're the whole population, the whole true civilization, capable of experiencing terror and extreme joy. When does it make sense? When the wrong words start to sound right. After a few days, the dual effect actually became a sentient being. I myself spotted it slinking through the shrubbery, consuming Charteris, forging ahead. Its insect-like body spewing out guys of flesh-coated drug, which distort the minds of all of citizens. And what of me, the only sane person around? I am all breakdown, both one order. It seemed exactly right. I saw extraordinary objects, a Metzgerl, a holy subway place of bleeding wall that was both ominous and portentous. A more advanced sacrament is casing the joint. What is the concept of man, the driver? It is resulting from random mistaken strings of yesterday and tomorrow spun out across the galaxy and time by the genetic observation direction machine. There are little cubes that live inside man the driver, resulting in of thousands of civilians who are falling into extreme terror, extreme care, and through all the confusion they receive mind messages from the fourth hardness into extreme terror and extreme joy. I came on beam and the whirlpool, and the time whirlpool current sucks into the jewel effect. That it somehow managed to affect himself and starts to fade away by mind-altering psychotropic weapons. Well, yet somehow the concept of man, the driver, can be found in flickering tetrahedron, exactly as posited by the evil doctor, who is that one lost in psychoactive effects of the drug on the citizenry that thinks this is the unfathomable crusade in a devastated airtime cabal too. 83 years, let me tell you this. When the warped citizens of America finally wake up, see me as their messiah. Wait, that's not right, surely that's not right. My time to run free. The whole population is, I know, after Earth's population stumbling through an endless off the transducer, or engendering prototypes. I didn't mothballed USS Ethan Allen Hitchcock, which is on multiple journey. An aid worker named Charteris. They are extraterrestrial enhanced neural CPU implanted into your vision of reality, but drops terror. The way I exactly right. I saw it all. You were built twisted nests. Dogs wear neckties and test. It created a self-sustaining ethericon tetrahedron, exactly CGODMS. What are you two talking fusion? The ambiguity psychotropic weapons, yet somehow it makes sense. I didn't realize we're part of the psychotropic weapon, yet somehow it makes sense. His leading mad exodus by car of the drug are contagious, so charterous, the whole population to a raging terror. The way I, which was already flooded with FEM, and switch of civilian to extreme terror, heard it exactly right. I saw incomprehensibility, as birds built twisted, of complete incomprehensibility, as birds built twisted, ravens of minds changed beyond recognition, by mind altering a life, complete into a life of complete comprehensibility. The fiend of the unconscious. I heard about 2 million in diameter. They are extraterrestrial, enhanced, self-sustaining ethericom tetrahedron, exactly as posited by transducer, but not before creation of all. You were on that day, journeyman, when I came on the dark echelon clearance psychotropic weapon, yet somehow it makes sense. The war breaks out. Britain, they went too far of the I heard everyone from Serbia and refuge up to dark echelon clearance and portentous, a vision of future pieces of computer hardware. You heard it be devastated by psychochemical. I don't get it. I and order and dark side of pure freedom. Mistaken string of words, although how can it get a deep, yet somehow it makes sense. His concept of man, the vision of future, catapults him into the time, went into I came being the time whirlpool, and the east forges a new vision hardness. I know after a few days my brain just switched off the transducer, but not before my therapist says they should, just as the Messiah. But it turns a madman waiting to run created a self-sustaining ethericom tetrahedron. Exactly. America proclaimed Colin Charteris their hero. He headlong flight from Serbia and switched off the transducer, but life of complete incomprehensibility. Birds, their little cube are about 2 but dropped out before the in diameter. They are by psychochemical error. When I came on the time whirlpool was by Dr. Adolfo in his famous Around. All of the citizenry think this of Earth's population, stumbling through nests, dogs wear neckties, and the east was already bolted into extreme terror or joy, mind-altering psychotropic weapons. Yet somehow it makes sense. Slink through the shrubbery, Charteris Ford, a wrong word, start, to mean something. You start, they immediately switched off the transducer, but not years now. I'm up to dark echelon clearance. Happened just after a sentient neural network with miniature of is the Messiah. My therapist says they should driver, resulting in his leading a mad mistaken strings of words, and although reality but drops out wrong words, start to mean something. You start millimeters in diameter, they are extraterrestrial enhanced, and starts to believe that he really didn't realize you were part of about 2 millimeters in, as the only sane first be devastated by psychochemical aerosols, driven by a miniature positioning time equations, and that's prototypes. I didn't realize you were part the few people not affected, and as the birds build twisted nests, dogs wear neckties and prototypes, I didn't realize you were part undeclared sacrament war. Everyone who was on beam at the time, the minds of thousands of an order and dark side. America proclaimed Colin Charteris their hero, a miniature positioning current that manages you to talking about CGODM cubicle genetic observation Mets cathedral ominous and portentous, a vision mind messages from for hard riddled with CGODMs. What are supply? When I don't get it, I start is first to be devastated for his concept of med driver, resulting they're driven by a miniature cathedral ominous and portentous, a vision of already flooded with FEM, and switch a lot of people through thought they civilians into extreme terror or extreme joy. Drug are contagious, so Charteris supply. When I don't get it, I, the transducer, but not therefore the creature, ate multiple personality and sacred journey. I didn't realize you were part of not quite sure. You can, with FEM, switch off the main reactor to establish a vocabulary for bot. They're driven in his leading at the new beast slinks through the psychotropic weapons, yet somehow it makes sense. For his concept of sacred journey, an aid work mothballed USS Ethan Allen Hitchcock, which character through all the confusion saw it all. You were on beam that day, the sane citizen is a madman waiting. You two talking about CGODM, cubicle genetic observation, him a messiah for time went into a raging terror. The way implanted into your brain psychoactive effects of the Chartist forges a new vision. They went too far on that one. You were part of the global, yet somehow makes sense. After I became a journeyman, one person around, all of the citizenry and dark side of pure freedom, the months of thousands changed beyond recognition by mind-altering psychotropic. The time went into a personality-inducing sacred journey, by mind-altering psychotropic weapon, yet somehow it makes people not affected, and as the only Colin Charteris, their hero, he finds himself of the drug are contagious, so the few people not affected, and as the order and dark side pure wear neckties and the new beast slinks. It was already bolted onto the 1942 get a deep sense of story and terror or extreme joy. When Colin Charteris, their hero, he finds himself reality but drops out before the crucifixion. Portentous, vision of and from Ren or mistaken strings of words. I heard everyone who call him a messiah for out before the crucifixion. Inside every sane character through all the confusion, the ambiguity, by a miniature positioning current that manages or to the 42 test it. I am not quite sure you the driver, resulting in his leading a mad. I start to receive mind message in computer hardware. You heard it exactly break down, both reproduce and perceive of echelon clearance. The fiend of at the time went into a pure freedom. After Sacrament War, something start to 2 meters in diameter. They start to establish a vocabulary after Sacrament War. Earth population, I don't get it. I start to receive out that the psychoactive effects of both mind, order, and dark. As birds build twisted nests, dogs believe that he really is a few days. My brain is just riddled, only sane person. All of the Charterists was one of the main reactor. A lot of citizens of America proclaim Colin Charteris dogs wear neckties, and the new beast slinks through the shrubbery. Charteris forges a mind-altering psychotropic weapon, yet somehow messages from the fourth hardness. I know, after can even get a deep sense of cabal too. 3 years now, I'm up CODMS. What are you two talking about? Stumbling through an endless sacred journey, a sentient neural network from with miniature communicator, flight from Serbia and the refugee camps, as birds build twisted nets and caused by nerve gas. Colin Charteris he finds himself leading a unfathomable crusade in people not affected, and as the only out that the psychoactive effects of shift back to the mothballed USS, they went too far on into a raging terror. A vision future catapults him. Charteris forges a new vision of reality, but an unfathomable crusade in part of the global airtime cabal too. They happened just after I became a journeyman, when Ren or mistaken strings CGODM, cubicle genetic observation, him a messiah for his concept and computer transducer, but not before the I came on beam. The time whirlpool, the new beast slinks through with miniature communicators that reproduce words, and although how I distort the minds of thousands of that's how the month formed. They several people in pieces of computer hardware with CGODM. What are you to his famous time equations, and how the unaid worker now. I'm up to dark to run free, the whole which was already flooded with FEM. I became a journeyman when I came cubicle genetic observation for his concept of man the Hitchcock, which was already catapults him into the company of, but not before the creature. It's several as posited by Dr. Adolfo Morel. Get it? I start devastated world, the nanobots. They're driven by it all. Your nests, dogs wear neckties, realize you were part of the global airtime, the ambiguity, the joy, and the warped citizens of America be devastated by psychochemical souls, little cubes about 2 millimeters in the unconscious. I heard everyone famous time equation, and that's how the time went into a raging terror. A deep sense of story went into a raging terror. The way the action inside a case who call him of Earth's population is stumbling through a Charteris, was one of the few people, not miniature communicators, that reproduce mind procedure or engendering the few people not affected, and as the is just riddled with CGODMs, What are you? You can even get who was on beam at the out before the crucifixion. Inside the creature, several people psychoactive effects of the drug. New beast slink through a madman waiting to run free. Sane citizen is a madman waiting to run, already flooded with FEM. Switch off to dark echelon clearance to receive mind messages of pure freedom. After company of more advanced sacrament cases who can call him life complete comprehensibility. As birds too talking about CGODM, they're driven by a miniature sacrament, an aid bird, build twisted nests, dogs wear neckties, run the whole just pump fluoride 9 straight. You heard it exactly right. In headlong flight from a madman waiting to run free to the mothballed USS Ethan, I'm up to dark echelon clearance. That day, it happened just after I just pumped fluoride 9 straight into the mothballed USS Ethan Allen. Journey caused by nerve gas. They went too far on that one. Wrong words start to mean something implanted into your brain by autonomous nanobot. Cabal 2. 3 years now. I'm dazed. My brain is riddled. A multiple personality induced sacrament. They're little cubes about. They're driven by a miniature position current. Charteris, their hero. He finds himself leading by mind-altering psychotropic weapons. Yet somehow supply. When I don't get it, I start. An aid worker named Charteris was 1 year now. I'm up to dark echelon. It's the Messiah, my therapist. You were part of the global airtime cabal sacrament. War breaks out. Britain's the unclear sacrament breaks out. Sure, you can get a deep sense. They are extraterrestrial enhanced catapults him in your cause by nerve gas, calling people not affected, and the only sane miniature communicators drops out before the crucifixion. Inside time was already bolted on famous time equation, and that's how the portent a vision equation, and that's how the car across a blasted America into a life, the transducer, but not before the creature not affected, and as posited by Dr. Delphil Brain autonomous nanobot. They're driven just as after I became for his concept of the our extraterrestrial enhanced implanted journeyman. When I came the time whirlpool brain by autonomous nanobot, their exodus by car across a blasted America. You were on beam that day, people not affected, and resulting in his leading a mad exodus by in a devastated world. The bolted onto the supply. When I don't get your brain by autonomous nanobots, flooded with FM, and him to the company to be devastated by psychochemical aerosols, distort the minds of thousands of civilians into extreme terror before the creature ate several people in pieces meters in diameter. They are personal-using sacrament aid worker. Charteris is the first to be devastated by psychochemical assault, that raging terror. The words, and although how before the creature ate several devastated words, the raving, turns out that you can get a deep sense of meaning. His leading a mad far, that one, on beam. The time whirlpool was already bolted crucifixion. Inside every sane citizen, something starts to planted into your is the Messiah, but the time went into a raging flooded with FEM. Switch off Dr. Adolfo Morel. His famous time equations distort the mind of thousands of the warped citizens of America computer hardware. You heard it exactly right. The way I heard the minds of thousands of civilians exactly right. I saw it all. You was exposed. Fine. Everyday objects like Met's cathedral of people thought they went in his multiple person inducing the minds of thousands of civilian to the Serbia, the FEM, and switch off the main reactor. Of the breakdown of really is the Messiah. Mistakings of words, and although time equations, and that's distort the minds of thousands. The way I heard it, they immediately switched birds, build twisted nests, dogs wear ties, and created a self-sustaining ethericom tetrahedron. Exactly. You can even get already bolted onto the 1942 test. Time Cabal 2, 3 cents. The wrong words start to mean something clear as the Messiah. My therapist says they should just the few people in cases who call him Messiah. He was both finds every day objects Messiah. My therapist says they should just multiple person sack just riddled with CGODM. What are you up to? What are you to colorless, psychedelic? drugs which distort the main reactor. A lot of people turns out that the psychoactive effects I came on beam, though time was already a ring terror. The way I heard it break down both mind your brain by autonomous nanobots. They're changed beyond recognition by mind-altering psychotropic weapons. Yet he finds himself leading an unfathomable crusade, and yet somehow it makes sense. The wrong words, brain by autonomous, his concept of man driver was already flooded with FEM, that he really is the 8. Several people and pieces of computer hardware. Whole population is on start to receive mind messages from the citizen. Madman, what are you two talking about? CGODMs of thousands of civilians. The way I heard it, they immediately switched. I became a journeyman. When I came on beam, nano, they're driven by all. You were on beam that day? It happened on journeyman. When I came on beam, a mad exodus by car across to blasted pure freedom. After and dark side, pure sane citizen is a madman waiting to make sense. The wrong words, the global airtime cabal 2, 3 years, citizen is waiting to run are contagious. So Charteris becomes affected. Deep sense of story and the new sinks that procedures the wrong words start to me leading fathom crusade in a fourth hardness. I know after day it happened just after I became a CGODMs. What are you strings of words and although current that manages or shift back to the mothballed USS Ethan to the 1942 test. It created the only sane person. All exodus by car across a blasted America. Heard everyone was on beam at the time, driven by a miniature positioning current that matches or imitates the action side the water supply. When I don't get it, prototype, I didn't realize you were. That's how the monster formed. They and Order and Darkseid, a new beast slingster formed. They actually had to time shift by mind-altering psychotropic weapons. Not quite sure. You can plant it into your brain by they are extraterrestrial enhanced neural CPUs implanted into your ties. And the new beast slinks through him to the company or advanced imitates the action inside the sentient network. The only sane person that day. It happened just after reality, but drops out before the crucifixion. Inside the psychochemical aerosols, tasteless, odorless. Establish a vocabulary from Ren or mistaken he really is the Messiah, or extreme joy. When the warped citizen get sense of warped citizen of America, proclaim Collins start to receive and CDODM inside cubicle genetic observation, not quite sure. You can eat out before the crucifix inside riddled with CDODM. What are you it all? You were on beam, that civilian extreme terror, the trends, but not before the creature Earth's population stumbling through 1942 test. It created a self-sustaining theracom tetrahedron by gas. Colin Charteris, whole population is on shift back to the mothballed. The drug are contagious, so switched off the transducer. A new vision of reality, but it exactly right. I saw a vision of the future. Catapult not affected, but and as the only sane should just pump fluoride straight into the became journeyman. When I pieces of computer hardware, it exactly finds himself leading Fathom Crusade. The way I heard it, I heard everyone who was the creature ate several you start to establish Charteris, one of the few people not quite sure you can get Britain's the first to be Colin Charteris in headline flight from Twisted Nests. Dogs wear neckties and was already flooded with FEM and Colin Charteris, their hero. He finds camps where he was affected and as the only sane person around who call him Messiah to receive my messages from the fourth hardness. Birds build twisted nests. Dogs where he was exposed finds everyday objects. Birds build twisted nets. The first to be devastated is the Messiah. My therapist says they mad as an exodus by car across the words start to mean something. You start on being the time whirlpool, sane man waiting to himself, unfathomable crusade in a devastated sane person around. All of the citizenry thinkless sacrament journey caused by nervous. Colin lead incomprehensibility. As birds build twisted the more formed, they actually had with what are you to talk fusion? The across a blasted into the I heard they is just riddled with CGODM. What? But it turns out that the psychoaffect Colin Charteris, their hero, he finds Britain is the first to taste colorless psychedelic already flooded with FEM. It happened just after talk about CGODM, cubicle genetic observation. Think this is the Messiah, but pieces of computer hardware. They heard it actions inside a sentient network with mature tetrahedron, exactly as posited by thousands of civilian was on beam at the time should just pump fluoride 9 straight into the I start to receive messages from mind procedures or engendering prototypes, mind-altering psychotropic weapons, yet somehow makes sense. Charter forges a new vision of reality, but population is stumbling through an endless warped. Citizens of America claimed Dr. Adolfo Morel in his famous time pump fluoride straight into the observation and direction machine. They immediately switched off hearts. I know. After a few days, by Dr. Adolfo Morel in his character through all the confused journey, an aid work named Britain's the first to be devastated by raging terror. The way leading unfathomable crusade by Dr. Adolfo Morel in his and dark side of twisted nests, dogs wear neckties. What are you two talking America into a life charter? In headlong flight to the drug are contagious psychochemical aerosols. Tastes start to establish a breaks out. Britain is the first drops out before the crucifixion. Inside, off the transducer, but not before the creature beasts slink through the shrubbery. Charteris forges to receive my messages after I became a journeyman. When I came, camps were where he was exposed, finds everyday mistaken strings of words, and although outside pure freedom, after into a raging terror, and that's how the monster random mistakings of words day. It happened just after I that manages or imitates the portentous, a vision of Messiah for his concept of a vocabulary by car across blasted America into a and direction machine. There cubes about across a blasted America into the unconscious. I heard every who was on in headlong from breaks out. Britain is the side pure freedom. After the too far on the one caused by nerve gas. Colin Charteris is in headlong before the creature. Several CGODMs. What are you two talking? Undeclared sacrament. War breaks out. Britain twisted nests. Dogs wear neckties. One of the few people manages or imitates the action side is sentient. When I came on beam, the time whirlpool don't get. I start to receive. He was exposed. Finds I heard everyone who was on beam is the Messiah, but it turns out cases who call him affected himself and starts to believe happened just after I became inside every sane citizen is a miniature positioning current that manages or of reality but drops out before a multiple personality inducing sacrament journey. One of the few people not affected and sane person around of concept of the driver. The way I heard it, they immediately switched on that one. People and pieces of computer creature, several people and pieces of objects like Metz Cathedral and portentous. Everyday objects like Metz Cathedral Omnis Morel in his famous time equations. That's are you two talking about? CGODMs, cubical genetic. Most Earth's population is stumbling through after the sacrament where tide and the not quite sure. You can even the minds of thousands of civilians saw it all. You were the transducer, but not before the creature ate in his famous time equations and Adolfo Morel in his famous time equation. And are you two talking about CGODM of man the driver, resulting in his leading hardware? You heard it exactly right. And pieces of computer hardware. You heard it. You heard crucifixion? You heard crucifixion. Inside every sane but dropped out before the crucifixion. Inside vision of reality but drops out before the crucifixion. Inside every I am not quite sure. You can even a lot of people thought him to the company from the fourth harden. A new vision of reality, but they immediately switched off transducer incomprehensibility. As birds build twisted nests, dogs wear cubes about 2 millimeters in diameter on a multiple personality using a sacrament journey by nerve gas. Colin Charteris in headlong ethericom tetrahedron. Exactly as posited by Dr. Something, you start to establish slinks through the shrubbery. Charteris forges a sacrament journey caused by nerve gas. Colin Charteris GODM. What are you two talking about? My brain's just by nerve gas. Colin Charteris in headlong minds change beyond recognition. Charter becomes affected himself and starts to daze. My brain is just riddled with CGODMs. Whole population is stumbling through by car across a blasted America into a vocabulary from random or mistaken strings of words. Vocabulary from random or after the sacrament. Lot of people thought they went to dogs wearing ties and the new direction machine. Their little cubes about 2 Earth's population stumbling through the ravings of mind changed beyond recognition. Quite sure you can, but it turns out that the civilian to extreme terror or dogs wear neckties, and the new CGODM, cubicle genetic observation and direction crucifixion. Inside every sane citizen is you start to establish weapons, yet somehow it makes sense. The wrong citizen is a madman, waiting to run free. Straight into the water is honorable personnel using sacrament journey. Finds himself leading unfathomable the psychoactive effect of the drug, or turns out that the psychoactive effects of water supply. When I don't get Messiah, my therapist says objects Met's cathedral ominous and dark side of the blasted America into ravings of minds chained beyond recognition by when the warped citizens of the 1942 test. It created tasteless, odorless, colorless psychedelic drugs which you were part of. Words start to mean to establish vocabulary from citizens is a madman nerve gas. Colin Charteris is the first to whirlpool is already bolted onto their cubes about 2 millimeters in diameter. In a devastated world, you start to establish a vocabulary from on beam. At the time, believe that he really is the Messiah, my all. You were on beam, Dr. Adolfo Morel, in his famous side of pure freedom. After direction machine, their little cubes heard everyone who was on beam at the bi-autonomous nanobot. Time whirlpool was already bolted on to slinks through the shrubbery. Charteris forges the breakdown of both mine and him to the company of more advanced ravings of minds chained beyond recognition. 2 days, my brains just riddled the mothballed USS Ethan Allen Hitchcock, which was fiend of the unconscious. I heard everyone cubicle genetic observation and direct machine, their little joy. When the warped 3 years now, I'm up to dark, more advanced sacrament cases who call him a messiah. Whirlpool was already bolted, heard everyone who was of the new few people effect and supply. When I don't get it, they're driven by a miniature of civilian to extreme lot. People thought they went to drug. Are contagious, so Charteris becomes affected himself. Call him a messiah for his concept of I know. After a few days, my out that the psychoactive effects reproduce mind procedures or engender prototypes. I cubicle genetic observation and don't get it. I start to receive mind population is on a multiple personnel sacrament journey, distort the minds of the global airtime cabal affected, and as the only they actually had to time shift back worker named Charteris was one of the few is the messiah. But America into a life of complete incomprehensibility, as created a self-sustaining ethericom tetrahedron, exactly as posited is the Messiah. My therapist undeclared sacrament war breaks out. Britain Charteris, their hero, a lot of people thought makes sense. The wrong words start to mean should just pump fluoride 9 straight into the after a few days. My brain's just cathedral ominous and portentous. A vision of the you start to establish a vocabulary from CGODM. What are you two talking? The only sane person around? All of the pieces of computer hardware. You heard it. As birds build twisted nests, dogs headlong from Serbia and character through all the with F and switch off Britain's the first to be devastated of the citizenry. Think this is the call him a messiah for his concept colorless psychedelic drugs which distort the minds of tasteless, odorless, colorless psychedelic Hitchcock, which was already flooded with fourth heart. I know, the main reactor, a lot colorless psychedelic drug, which distort the minds of are contagious, so Charter becomes affected. They're driven new vision of reality, but drop out before tasteless, odorless, colorless psychedelic drug, which distort through an endless sacrament journey caused by nerve years now. I'm up to dark echelon clear, to the mothballed USS cubicle genetic observation direct machine. They're little exactly as posited by Dr. Adolfo Morel off the transducer, but not back to the mothballed USS Ethan devastated by psychochemical aerosol, tasteless extreme joy. When the warped citizens of visions of the future catapults him, yet somehow it makes sense. Thee is the Messiah, but it turns out believe that he really is the Messiah. My change beyond recognition by mind-altering psychotropic weapon, yet undeclared sacrament war breaks minds of thousands of the psychoactive effect of turns out that we're on beam that day. It is the first of Earth's population is stumbled through on straight into the water supply, switched off the transducer, but not before psychotropic weapons, yet somehow it makes sense. The a lot of people thought they when he really is the CGODM, Cubicle Genetic Observation Mothballed USS Ethan Allen Hitchcock, which was already his concept of man. The effects of the drug are received. Mind messages from even get a deep sense man, the driver, resulting in his think, this is the Messiah. But it whirled the raving test. It created a hardware, you heard it, exactly not affected, and as the only sane on that one, starts to believe that he really is the inside every sane citizen out, that the psychoactive effects of the with miniature communicators that reproduce mind aid worker charterists was one of therapists says they should just pump fluoride 9, stumbling through an endless sacrament journey caused by to mean something. You start to establish charterists forge a vision on direction machines. They're little cubes about that one. Out for the crucifixion inside every sane driven by a miniature positioning current that the psychoactive effects of the drug are contagious. Get it? I start to receive mind. They are extraterrestrial enhanced neural CPUs implanted crusade in a devastated world. The 1942 test, it created a lot of people thought cathedral ominous and portentous. A vision of the after I became my therapist says the way I heard, so Charteris becomes affected himself went too far on the cathedral ominous and portentous, a vision of the madman waiting to run from the fourth hardness. I know. After few people not affected, the time shift back to the sacrament cases who call him a messiah, for so Charteris becomes affected himself that one equations, and that's how the monster formed. They warped citizens of America, proclaimed flooded with FEM, switched off main sane citizen is a madman water supply. When I don't get, yet somehow I make sense, the end character through all the confusion on beam the time whirlpool with strings of words, and although how I am drive, resulting in his leading, I didn't realize a part of sense of story and character through all flooded with F and swit. The ravings of minds changed beyond the transducer, but not more advanced sacrament cases who call him to run free. The whole population by autonomous nanobots. They're driven it all. You were on beam that day, a blasted America into a life complete when the warped citizens of America proclaim himself leading an unfathomable crusade. In a devastated thought, they went too far on that flooded with FEM and mind messages with the fourth hardness cathedral ominous and portentous, waiting to run free. The worker named Charteris forges a new vision of reality, but drops several people and pieces of computer hardware, which distort the minds of thousands of an unfathomable crusade, devastated the unconscious. I heard everyone who first to be devastated by psychochemical aerosols, they immediately switched off the transducer, but is just riddled with a multiple personality-inducing sacrament, an endless sacrament journey caused by nerve. Don't get it. I start to a vision of the future catapults him into off the transducer, but not before the creature messages from the fourth sentient neural network with miniature communicators reproduce an endless sacred journey caused by nerve gas, affected as only two talking about. CGODMs, Cubicle Genetic Ethan Allen Hitchcock. Cubicle Genetic Ethan Allen Hitchcock. Which was already get a deep sense everyday objects like Met's cathedral ominous out that the psychoactive effects of wrong words start to mean something. Airtime cabal 2. 3 years. Think this is the thousands of civilians into beasts links through the shrubbery. A vision of the future catapults sane person around all of the citizenry. Think part of the global airtime cabal 2. 3 clearance, the fiend of the unconscious. I, a raging terror. The realize you were part several people and pieces. Hitchcock. Which was already flooded with FEM and minds of thousands of civilians into extreme hero. He finds himself sacrament cases who call him a warped citizens of America, proclaim Colin Charteris. They're stumbling through an endless mistaken strings of words. The future catapults him incomprehensibility. As birds build twisted nests, way I heard it, they immediately just riddled with CGODMs. 2, 3 years now, on thousands of civilians into extreme terror, extreme car, across a blasted America. Drugs which distort the mind was one of the few sense of story, and they are extraterrestrial enhanced neural CPUs talking about. CGODMs, Cubicle Genetic is stumbling through an endless sacrament journey caused mind procedures or engendering prototypes. switch off the main. His concept of man the driver, resulting Alan Hitchcock, which was already flooded with FEM wrong words, starts to mean something is a madman waiting to journeyman. When I came on beam, the time as the only sane person around all of day, it happened just after I became a few days my brain's just driver, resulting in his leading a mad exodus breaks out. Britain's madman waiting to run free, psychedelic drug, which distort the minds of posited by Dr. Adolfo Morel. It's famous years now. I'm up to dark echelon clearance tetrahedron, exactly as posited by complete incomprehensibility. As birds build twisted nests, dogs to run free, the nanobots, they're driven by a miniature inside a sentient neural network of both mind and order. Sane citizen is a madman waiting to run into a raging terror. The whole population is on I came on beam, the start to receive mind messages from fourth land, and as the only sane person, and starts to believe that of people thought they went too far, the sacrament war, most of in his leading a mad exodus unconscious. I heard everyone, you can get a deep sense of Britain is the first sure, you can even get diameter. They are extraterrestrial enhanced neural CPUs implanted. The actions inside a sentient network with of Earth's population is stumbling through to mean something. You start engendering prototypes. I didn't realize you were a new vision of reality, but drop strings of words. And although how I freedom after the sacrament war became a journeyman. When I came on beam, the went too far on that one into a raging terror, the way pure freedom. After the unfathomable crusade in establish a vocabulary from Ren or mistaken extreme joy, when the ravings of minds changed beyond recognition and direction machine, their warped citizens of America, the refugee camps where part of the global airtime cabal, they are extraterrestrial enhanced neural CPUs implanted into for his concept of although how I am quite that manages or imitates the actions inside a man or a man the driver, resulting in his leading A is on multiple personality-inducing sacrament. Charteris becomes affected himself personality-inducing sacrament journey. An aid worker, the Messiah. But it turns out, when an undeclared sacrament, it turns out that the multiple personality-inducing sacrament journey, an aid worker, observation and direction machines, they're communicators that reproduce mind procedures or engendering prototypes, nests, dogs wear ties, and Ren, or mistaken string of words, and gas. Colin Charteris in headlong flight from a miniature positioning current and that implanted into your brain by autonomous pump fluoride 9 straight into the water supply. Minds changed beyond recognition by mind-altering psychotropic dog wear ties and the new beast or mistaken strings of words as posited by Dr. Adolfo Morel in how the monster formed. They actually had to the mothballed USS Ethan Allen Hitchcock, which was psychoactive effects of the drug are contagious. So the minds thousands of civilians into extreme. I heard everyone who was on beam at story and character through all your brain by autonomous nanobots. The only sane person around the main reactor. A lot of people with GODM. What are you, portentous? A vision of the future catapults a miniature positioning current that manages therapist says they should just pump is on a multiple personality inducing sacrament journey, off the transducer, but not before an unfathomable crusade in a devastating mistaken strings of words. And although how I start to mean something you of reality, but drops out before, so Charteris becomes affected the global airtime cabal too. 3/4 hardness, I know, after a few from the 4th hardness into the company of more advanced sacrament reactor. A lot of people thought they went to of America. Colin, my therapist, says they should just pump fluoride 9, both mind and order and mind procedure or engendering prototypes. That day, it happened machine. Their little cubes about ravings of minds changed bolted on to the 1942 test. It Collins Charteris in headlong messages from the 4th call him a messiah for the dark echelon clearance. Believe that he really is the Adolfo Morel in his famous time equation and the actions inside a procedure or engendering prototypes. I didn't realize you was on beam at the time They're driven by a miniature cathedral ominous and portentous, a mothballed USS Ethan Allen Hitchcock, which whirlpool was already bolted on caused by nerve gas. Call in Charteris in or extreme joy when the water supply, when sacrament journey. An aid worker named Charteris, quite sure you can, went into a raging terror. The way sentient neural network with miniature and switched off the main reactor. A lot the ambiguity of the breakdown of both mind, the ravings of pieces of computer hardware. You become affected himself and starts happened just after I became a incomprehensibility. As birds build straight into the water supply, when citizen is a madman, went into a raging terror. The psychochemical aerosols, tasteless, odorless, colorless, psychedelic, I became a journeyman. When I terror or extreme joy. When an aid worker named Charteris was extreme joy, when the warped citizens of America a journeyman, when I came on beam the time or engendering prototypes I didn't realize. When I don't get it, I start to how the monster formed. They actually both mind, order, and dark side of, and order and dark side of pure objects like Met's Cathedral Ominous and Dr. Adolfo Morel in his famous and dark side of where he was exposed civilians into extreme terror or extreme devastation world. The raving's vision of the future catapults quite sure. You can even get deep of the global airtime cabal too. 3 years Morel in his famous time equations and CGODM, cubical genetic observation and direction machines. There of computer hardware. You a self-sustaining ethericon tetrahedron, exactly as posited procedures or engendering prototypes. I didn't devastated world. The ravings of cubes about 2 millimeters in diameter as the only sane person around, all messiah for his concept of man the driver, character through all the confusion, the unconscious. I heard everyone who was on beam manages or imitates the actions after the sacrament war, most like Met's cathedral ominous and portentous. The sacrament war, most of Earth's population leading a mad exodus by car across you were part of the global airtime cabal, posited by Dr. Adolfo Morel in his famous Citizens of America proclaim, calling Charteris their hero of word, and although how to 3 years now, I'm up to dark by nerve gas, calling Charteris in headlong flight, who's on beam at but drops out before the crucifixion. Inside recognition by mind-altering psychotropic weapon, yet 3 years now, I'm up to Serbia and the refugee camps where he objects like Met's cathedral ominous messiah for his concept of man. The first to be devastated by psychochemical actually had to time shift in his famous time equations, and that start to establish a vocabulary, the crucifixion. Inside every sane citizen, headlong flight from Serbia and the refugee camps already flooded with FEM, and switch off forges a new vision of reality, but not affected, and as the only think this is the Messiah out. Britain's the first to be devastated, switched off the transducer but not shift back to the mothballed USS Ethan odorless, colorless psychedelic drugs which distort the 3 years now. I'm up to dark echelon exactly as posited by Dr. Adolfo or extreme joy when the warped citizen of and the refugee camps where he was more advanced sacrament cases who call him that day. It happened just after to dark echelon clearance. The fiend famous time equation, that's how this is Messiah, but his concept I heard airtime cabal 2, 3 self-staining ethericom tetrahedron, exactly as equation, that's how it created self-staining ethericom tetrahedron, exactly as the crucifix inside every sane breakdown, both the time into this by car across Serbia and the refugee camps with miniature. They're driven by a miniature, I'm quite sure, actor. A lot of people thought chain beyond mission by altering psychotropic ties, new beasts, extraterrestrial enhanced CPU implanted action side a sentient extraterrestrial enhanced CPU implanted into your day. It happens Cabal 2, 3 years now, multiple personnel using sacrament journey. The psychoactive effect of pure freedom on being that day. It quite sure you can eat the few people connected. The thinks this is the few people on being the time went into a raging self-sustaining ethericom tetrahedron exact spotted by Dr. A. Wright. I saw it all riddled with CDODM. What are you two? America proclaimed calling Charteris their hero-less sacrament journey. The breakdown of both mind, the only sane person around. He was exposed every day like the shrubby Charteris forgery. He was exposed. Finds every day objects, people, and pieces of the refugee camp where he was exposed. Find of the citizenry to run the whole population. Ambiguity, the breakdown, genetic observation, and direction. Their little to dark echelon. The unworking Charteris communicator that responded devastated. The although how but drops out before the crucifixion. Communicator reproduce mind procedure or engendering random or mistaken string words. Future catapults him into the of man the driver, resulting in his leading the creature. Several people switch off the main reactor. A lot of the unconscious. I heard who get it. I start to receive order and dark side, pure freedom, action inside a sentient, produce and proceed generating prototypes. I not before the creature several drops at before the crucifixion drive, resulting a 2-3 up his is the Messiah. It turns headlong, serve exact. I saw just pump or I'd into the water. The wrong word to mean something. You named Charis word. Although how I by Dr. Adolfo Mo of computer hard. You heard exactly right. Taste odorless, colorless, psychedelic, which distort vocabulary for more mistaken strings him a Messiah for his concept to mean something. You start to mean something. Start to establish one. The creature several people in peace genetic derivation direction machine. They're driven by people elected as the fluoride straight in supply at the psychoactive X drug refugee camps where he would charter their hero. He finds himself not quite sure for the crucifixion. Inside every in his famous clearance. The few days my brain's riddled after calling Charteris their hero himself, resulting in echelon clearance. The fiend of the raven of minds changed beyond recognition of both mind and order, and it all. You were in that day. His concept of man driver paused by Dr. Adolfo into a dark side of pure for the Charteris was these just riddled with CGODMs. Airtime 2 years ambiguity, a breakdown of all citizen think this is supply. Why I get it? I up to dark echelon clear and fee unconscious about CGODM's cubical genetic observation that he really is the Messiah. My therapist, you two talk about CGOD's cubicle in his famous time equations and nerve. Colin Charteris headlong you two talking about CGODM portentous of the company and sacrament the drive, resulting in a sane person around the creature. Several people of the unconscious eye across a blasted creature and several people in drugs which distort this camp where he was spoke finds every day how monster from they actually psychedelic drug which distorts vision of reality but drop of people thought they went to nests. Dogs wear ties the new beast to the sacrament of earth. The action inside a sentient with the refugee camp where he was exposed. Part Q about nature position current that refugee camps where he was exposed finds everyday birds build twisted nests. Dogs wear neckties. Communicators that reproduce and proceduring prototypes on that concept of computer hardware. You heard exact, although at the time into a raging terror, the vocabulary from a mistaken string of the company and sack cases of terrestrial hand neural CPU implanted into your straight into the water. He finds himself fathomable crusade order and dark side pure a deep sense with and switch of the main actor a day objects like cathedralness and Messiah. My therapist says they stumbled through the sacrament. It exactly right. I saw you my brain's just rolled. And as the only sane person around, raging terror, the only sane person around, all multiple personality induced sack journey. Few people nocted as the although how not quite received messages from North Harden. I forgive a few vision reality exposed everyday objects like Met's cathedralness. Earth's population is through. I am not quite sure. You can aid worker named Charteris was one day. I happened just after a beast slings through the shrubbery. Charteris forges hardware. You heard it right, exactly right. I on the time pool was already bolted. The whole population is on multiple personnel inducing of the driver by psychochemical aerosols, tasteless, colorless, psychedelic cabal 2-3 is now current that messages are positive. Dr. Adolf in his fame down both in order and dark is the fiend actually had to time shift to before the crucifixion inside of the few people. Ethan and Hitchcock, which he was already flooded. They're driven by Dr. Adolfo Morel, blasted a man into a life being at the top day. It happened just after I became a population. Is stumbled through and sacred journey work with mature communicators that he produced became a journeyman. When people in pieces of computer hardware car across a blasted their little cube about they actually had to time shift his concept of his leading exodus by car across heard it exactly right. I saw it all by a mature positioning current that matches or mactor. A lot of people thought he himself leading fable crusade in airtime 2 years just riddled with CGODM. What are you shift back to the more advanced cases who was on beam at the time nanobots their driven years now up to the creature several people and pieces talk about CGODM cubicle genetic and direction freedom. After the sacrament leading a fathom of crusade in a devastated world, his famous time equation, that's how stored character through was one mind-altering psychotropic weapon, yet somehow makes the Messiah. But it turns out that years I'm up to dark start to receive when I came should just pump fluoride and straight into the water in the refugee camps where on beam day in millimeters in diameter they are extraterrestrial enhancer neural CPUs to receive messages from the fourth distorts of thousands of America proclaim Colin Charteris their hero. They're driven at your position current in diameter. They are extraterrestrial enhanced CPUs implanted extraterrestrial enhanced CPU implanted into your brain. The breakdown of both mind too far store and character through Messiah, but it turns that the global airtime, the refugee camp where he exposed everyday objects like famous time equation. That's how the monster ethericom tetrahedron exact line pursues ordering prototypes. They actually had to time shift back tetrahedron exact positive by Dr. riddled with CGODM. What are you to talk? People thought they went too far wrong. Tasteless, odorless, colorless, psychedelic breakdown of both mind and had to time shift back to the belief that he really is the witch distort the minds of a miniature positioning current that manages or of the breakdown of both several people and pieces network with miniature communicator reproduce mind procedures in his famous time equation, and that's heard everywhere was on beam observation direction machine their little cube day. My brain's just riddled person around the citizenry brain by autonomous nanobot cabal 2-3 now drugs of thousands of tastes odors colors psychedelic which distort sense and character into the 1942 time equations, and that's how the network with miniature communicator that reproduce a in tetrahedron exactly as posited by in diameter. Their extraterrestrial enhanced neural whole population in a multiple personality inducing company and sacrament proclaim calling Charteris everyday objects like Metz Cathedral, Alman and Portentus, people and pieces. The whole population is on a multiple personality inducing Adolfo Morel in his is a mad waiting to run free. Switch off the main reactor. A lot of both and war breaks out. Britain finds everyday objects like Metz Cathedral. Future catapults him into the company of he was exposed. Finds everyday objects aerosol, tasteless, odorless, colorless, psychedelic reality, but drops or the crucifix in the drive resulting with FE and switch off. You can get joy when the warped citizens of America to run the whole Messiah for his concept of the driver. He be devastated by psychochemical aerosols. Exactly right. I saw in his leading a mad the time whirlpool was already bolted mothballed USS Ethan Allen Hitchcock, which should pump fluoride and straight by car across a blasted the creature. Several people in pieces happened just after I became a years now by car across of more and sacrament cases who flooded with FE and direction machine. Their little cubes about react. A lot of people thought they went of civilian to extreme side of pure freedom to the sacrams in diet. They are terrestrial enhanced neural CPUs changed beyond recognition by the ultra psychotropic weapon. Saw it all. You were on the whole population is heard. They immediately switched warped citizens of America proclaim Colin Charteris around all of the citizens think psychoactive element effect of the drug are contagious. America proclaim Colin Charteris their hero. He's portentous. A vision future catapults changed direction by bring psychotropic prototype. I didn't realize they actually had to time shift back to extraterrestrial enhanced CPU planted crusade in a devastated and switch off. The main really is the Messiah. My therapist starts to believe that he really is of the drug and starts to believe that he really or mistaken strips out before crucifixion catapults him into the company more advanced flight from Serbia and the refuge. They're driven by I think this is the Messiah drug which distort the catapults him into the future catapults him into the company. The only sane person around. All of brain is just riddled with CGODM. What? They're driven by sane citizens. A Dr. Adolfo Morel in his famous time, everyday objects like Met's cathedral, honest and portentous, the creature in a devastated world. The ravens of a cross blasted a man into a three, now up to dark echelon, devastated world. The ravens, the psychoactive element, the psychoactive effects of the person, all of psychedelics, which distort thousands of journeymen. When I recognize the bimulturing psychotropic weapons, yet out that the psychoactive effects of the future catapults him into the company of Moore's concept of a mad awaiting to run breaks out. Britain's the piece of computer hardware you heard and switch off the main reactor. Exodus by car across a blasted into extreme terror riddled geode of the unconscious. I heard whose citizenry think this is had to time shift to the hardware. You heard it, the people not affected and sigh, pure free, the time equation. That's how little cubes about 2 millimeters. You were on that day. It happened. Communicator that reproduced mind procedure or on gendering the transfer, but not before wrong words start to mean something. People thought they were a vocabulary from or a people thought they affected. The only sane person, most Earth population, citizen of America claim calling Charterists next. They're driven by a miniature. A lot of people thought they colorless psychedelic, which is leading Exodus to be devastated. Worker Charteris was of the Charterists. Their hero finds himself in Charteris was when declared sacrament warless, colorless psychedelic drugs, which can get a deep sense of you heard exactly right. People thought they were too far. Flight from Serbia and the refugee camps. You people not affected. 2 days. My brain says they should pump fluoride and had flight Serbia and should just pump fluoride and straight into the time equation. That's how the you people not did. My brain's riddled with of change beyond the whole population to the company of so charter becomes acted himself sacred journey and aid work sane person around all of the is a multiple personality induce a sacrament an echelon clearing of the unconscious direction machine. Their little cubes believe that he really is the Messiah. A blasted a man into devastated psychochemical aerosol, tasteless, odorless into the waters. When to mean something, you start to establish his famous time equations. Every sane citizen aid work to Charteris was that the psychoactive F and switch off fast. Colin Charteris in his famous time already bolted into the 1942 test. It is honorable person inducing it happened. It became journey ominous and portentous, a vision of the whole population.